Welcome to the Dalen Show. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? So good to see you. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the Dalen Show. I'm your host, Dalen Flowers. Please subscribe. It only takes a few seconds to do so and allows us to continue having conversations like this moving forward. We appreciate your support. I hope you enjoy episode number 16 with my main man, Tyler Ferentz. Great conversation with the guy from Little Rock, just like myself. So much history within sports and his new found form and career within sports media. So great conversation with him. Go check that out. And the previous week as well with the Ole Miss athletic director, Keith Carter, had a great conversation with him about a lot of different things. So go check out those last two episodes. It's been a super great time. And we're continuing to move forward within the show. Fall camp is here in Oxford, so I've been around there as well. So go check out Locked On Ole Miss and the Rebel Walk to go tune in for some of my details within that. But now moving forward, let's introduce our guest for today's episode, Mr. Matthew Engelbert. Woohoo!
Hey, Dalen, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How are you? How's life treating you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Of course. So real quick, Matthew, I always kind of like have my guests kind of introduce themselves to people watching and listening that may not know a lot about the guest. So just real quick, could you give like a brief introduction about yourself, just like where you're from, what you do in your life, and just some things you've been able to do across your life as well to get you where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. Well, my name's Matt. Everyone calls me Matt. My mom would prefer everyone called me Matthew, but I'm good with Matt Engelbert. I'm originally from the state of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up there, went to school at the University of Iowa, and started out my profession with the Hawkeyes. So from there, I went from Iowa, spent 20 plus years with the Hawkeyes, ended up in Arkansas after that, worked with a good friend of mine, Bret Bielema.
Mm-hmm.
Then when Bret was let go, fortunately, I had a landing spot here in Oxford, Mississippi. But what I do is I oversee the video operations for coaching solutions for the Ole Miss football team. And that's what I've done for most of my career, if not all of my career.
Yes, sir. Look, I want to start real quick, but I know we chatted about it a little bit before we got on camera. Talk about the Cubs and what the Cubbies mean to you. And also, I know the passing of Ryne Sandberg has hit the entire baseball world really hard. Just what does his career mean to you as well?
Yeah, growing up in Iowa, you have a choice of teams. You have the Twins up to the north. You got the Brewers. You got the Cubs, White Sox. You got the Royals and the Cardinals to the south.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing one team I did detest when growing up, and I still kind of do today, are the Kansas City Royals. Because growing up in southern Iowa, everyone were Royals fans when it was Saberhagen, George Brett, and all those guys. And I got tired of hearing about them, and they were successful. And then once WGN came into my small little town of New Sharon, Iowa, everyone became Cubs fans. And I hated the Royals even more for that thing, too. So, but when you come to Ryne Sandberg, the second game I've ever was in Wrigley Field for, and probably my second ever Cubs game, was against the St. Louis Cardinals. And it was June 23rd, 1984. My dad and I were on a bus trip. There was a lot of games that we would take buses from Cedar Rapids, Iowa into Chicago. They drop us off, give us game tickets. We go to the game and then come back on the bus and had our merry time. And we chose right that year. We chose Cubs Cardinals. I just remember getting on the bus that day, knowing it was Ralph Citarella pitching for the Cardinals, and I thought the Cubs were going to have a great day, and it turned around to be the opposite. Steve Trout was on the mound for the Cubs, and my dad was so much a Cubs fan, and the Cubs got behind, and here I am 14 years old, and he got so upset he had to go for a walk around Wrigley Field, came back, magic happened. And I just still to this day, I'm seeing that smile on my dad's face when Sandberg started hitting those home runs. And it was just a magical day. And I mean, this last week, we knew that probably the end was near. Hearing Jed on the broadcast when the Red Sox were in town, kind of saying how much that Ryne had meant to the organization, kind of knew the end was near. And just hearing the news, it was just tough. And then you see all the highlights and the tributes. Yeah. And I mean, I still listen to the score out of Chicago and hearing everybody on there talk about how great of a person Ryne was, not only as a ball player, but just as a human being. Seeing Bob Costas, hearing Sutcliffe and Dunston and all those guys that we grew up watching. It was tough. And it's still kind of tough today. As I mentioned, I've got the Cubs game on my iPad right now, just kind of glancing over, just checking the score. But, I mean, you choose a team when you grow up in Iowa, and I chose the Cubs, and still a fan of them, and that ain't changing.
Yeah, I love that. It's something that I can resonate with a little bit growing up in Arkansas. We didn't have that professional sports team, so you kind of had to pick and choose your pro sports teams wisely. And then when you pick with them, you kind of got to stick with them. So I love that story. And rest in paradise to the great Ryan Sandberg. A heck of a career, and I know that he transformed a lot of what we're seeing in today's baseball players throughout his career and his time. So rest in peace to Mr. Sandberg. Matthew, I want to kind of chat with you. You mentioned your father and your mother. Just talk about what the impact they had on you growing up, and what were some of the life lessons they taught you to be the man that you are today?
Well, my dad was my high school principal.
Wow.
And when people, and the one thing I do not want people referring to me as is Mr. Engelbert, because that was my dad, that was my high school principal, and that title belongs to him, not to me. And we had a very tight-knit family. I have two sisters, my mom and my dad, and the story always kind of goes, my dad was also a high school girls basketball coach. So he got to coach them in basketball in their high school years. Never got to coach me, which I don't have any regrets for. I got to sit alongside him on the bench when he decided, get away from the high school game and just start coaching junior high. So he and I spent time doing that. He'd always play catch with me in the yard, throw batting practice to me as I was getting ready to play Little League. Sports were very important to him, to me, to our whole family. And that's kind of how I am where I am today, because he and I would not only go to Chicago Cubs games, we go to Iowa Cubs games, and we had season tickets to the Iowa football games. And there was a very famous Iowa football game, number 1 Iowa versus number 2 Michigan, October 19th, 1985. I still remember we were in Section P, row 78, seats 89 for that. And Rob Houtland hit a game-winning field goal. His time expired to beat Michigan. And again, seeing the smile on his face as we were witnessing that, it just meant something. And so we would go to Iowa City every single weekend. We try to make it up to, say, Wisconsin or Minnesota for a road trip every once in a while. But I was like his little buddy to be able to, attend ball games with. And being a high school girls basketball coach, I could tell when games meant something to him that he lost, when they won. So that's the main reason why I'm the sports fan that I am today. And then my mom, who just recently passed away a year ago, she was 94, I believe. She's your mom. I mean, she's the one that when my dad and I would come home from high school football games, she'd have the hot chocolate ready to go on the stove, and we'd just sit there and, just talk. And she was always there for us. She was always the fan in the stands. She was quiet. She just watched us because that's what a mom does. And, I had very good family, very good parents who cared about their kids, and they just wanted the best for their kids. And that's all I can ask I can do for my family today.
Yes, sir. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you, I hear your love and I see your love about Iowa. Was that like your only decision in terms of when you were getting ready to kind of pick where you wanted to go to college? Was that your only decision? Were you kind of just setting goal on going to Iowa?
Well, it's kind of funny because my son, who goes to school here at Ole Miss, we were he's going to be a senior next year. So when we were visiting schools a few years ago, we always kind of discussed this, that I made, I think, 3 campus visits, and they're all within the state of Iowa. I can't remember which one was first, but I visited Drake. I visited Coe College, which is where my sister went. But the last school I went to was Iowa. And had great visits at Drake, had great visit at Coe. And then I got to Iowa, and I'm like, just did not have that warm, fuzzy feeling that I was expecting to have when I went there. Yeah. But I ended up going there because I think my dad kind of was hoping that I would go down to Iowa City. My sisters, his daughters, were already living in that Iowa City, Cedar Rapids area. So if he was going to come visit me, he could come visit all of us. Yeah. My mom and my dad. So I wouldn't say that Iowa did anything to wow me to get there. Yeah. But fortunately, I did choose Iowa because if I had not, I'm sure I would have been successful, or felt like I would have been successful in whatever I chose to do, but I would not be where I am today, knowing and meeting the people that I have along the way.
Yes, sir. I understand. Kind of staying on that college topic, I think that I'm about to be, I'm in my senior year now here at Ole Miss, and there's so many life valuable lessons that you learn throughout college, and whether that's meeting people, learning how to, navigate your way through life. For you throughout your time in college, what were some of maybe the life lessons that you learned throughout your time in college, whether that was through academics, whether that was through people, whether that was through sports, anything that maybe have been important to you now as an adult, or maybe, important to you being as a father? What were some of the life lessons you maybe were able to learn through college that have really helped you in your life?
Oh, I would tell you this. I was not the best of students. And it wasn't just because I was going out at nights and stuff like that. We enjoyed our social life, but that had nothing to do with why I wasn't great at school. And I can't put my finger on why I wasn't a great student, but I've had to fight myself out of a hole. My first semester, my GPA was not very good. Yeah. I took some classes I probably shouldn't have taken as a college freshman. I kind of, went in with 2 feet instead of tiptoeing into the waters. So I kind of had to battle my way out of that. Then when I started working for the football team as a student, I started taking easier classes, but now I'm having to battle a new time commitment. That was a little tough for me. And that second year that I was working for the program, we were a top 10 football team that ended up in the Rose Bowl that year. And my grades didn't reflect that of a Rose Bowl participant. So there was a time where I had to come to about maybe my spring of my sophomore year that I was thinking, is this the right place for me? Yeah. But I stuck it out and got my grades going in the right direction. And I think this isn't, it's definitely not because it's Iowa. It would be anywhere you would go. Is you got to find the right people that can give you the support you need. Yeah. And, be around good people. Those who want to see you succeed. I mean, we talk about this today in different terms, I guess, but the message is still there, is that be around good people, and good people will help get you to where you need to be. And I feel like I had a really good support group there with the people that I worked with, not only just students, but other department heads. We were a tight-knit group there. And I'm sure I'd like to think that we are a tight-knit group here at Ole Miss as well, and that we all want to see each other succeed.
Yes, sir. Throughout growing up as an Iowa fan, going to college at Iowa, and I'm sure still having a strong and love passion for Hawkeyes. Who's been your favorite football player ever to put on the Hawkeyes jersey? Who have you sat back and just will be like, I will forever enjoy him playing in the Hawkeyes jersey for the University of Iowa?
I could think of quite a few. But I have 4 people whose pictures I'm looking at on my wall right now that meant a lot to me. Yeah. One would be Dallas Clark. Dallas is such a down-to-earth, simple person. Yeah. And there's a good story about him and a bunch of us going into Chicago for a Cubs game one time, and him giving me the nickname of L Train because I knew how to get us to Wrigley on the Chicago Public Transit. There's Nate Kading, who was a all-pro field goal kicker and won the Grozer Award for us at Iowa. Nate's a local kid, but there's the story of how we had to get him back from the San Antonio Riverwalk to the hotel late night after he won. He beat Texas Tech on a last-second field goal to win us the Alamo Bowl in 2001. There's Adrian Claiborne that's on my wall, who was an all-pro, all Big Ten, all-pro defensive lineman who Adrian Claiborne's on my wall. I just now thought of somebody else, but Adrian came out to speak to my Little League team one time, that's T-ball team. I mean, here's big old Adrian Claiborne hovering over these 4 and 5-year-old kids with parents walking by just with their mouth wide open saying, that's Adrian Claiborne. Cool. Another one's Brian Bulaga. Yeah. He went on to be a Packer. and he was an offensive lineman for us. He was a first-round draft pick of the Packers, who I'm also a big-time fan of.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant a lot to me. And then the one I was thinking of with Adrian was Colin Cole, who was on, he was on a team around 2000 to 2002, defensive lineman, went on to play for the Packers and the Panthers and everything like that. But Colin, I always single him out too, because I said to him, I said, Colin, we're naming our son Colin, and we like how you spell your name, so we're using your spelling of it too. And every time I see him, which isn't often anymore, but he would always remind me, and especially my son, you have my name, you have a responsibility to it.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I kind of want to dive into your working experience at Iowa. I think when people maybe hear your title, they may not know exactly, what you do behind the scenes for the programs that you've been at. So what was your working experience like at Iowa? And kind of, if you could, in a little bit of detail, describe to people watching and listening what your role is in terms of what you do for the team, what your requirements are for, like what may be some things that people may see from a football team that you do that maybe they wouldn't know that, that you would do.
Yeah. So our line of work is really, it's same with equipment, same with training. It progresses throughout time. So what I did back when we first started in 1989 to where we are in 2025 right now, has progressed and changed so dramatically over that time. When I started out, my first year, they were still shooting on film. And that's how I've seen the stories. I don't know them that well firsthand because I was so wide-eyed to the whole experience, but they take the film, take it back, get it developed, and then have to bring it back to the office for the coaches to watch. It wouldn't be ready till the next morning. So if you wanted to watch practice, you wouldn't have it till the next morning.
Yeah.
And there'd be one reel in one coach's office. And if you wanted to watch, Iowa's offense versus Wisconsin's defense, well, you had to go get that reel from the coach's office and take it to the projector and be able to use it there. My first year was that transition year, even though the Big Ten and I think the SEC and ACC, all the different conferences were still shooting on film. We were starting to transition to go to videotape. Mm-hmm. And we were shooting on a format called SVHS, Super VHS. So this allowed the coaches to be able to start watching practice as soon as they came off the practice field, instead of having to wait for it. Still shot the film as a backup, but now we can start that process quicker. So from there, we transition into linear editing, where you could had to use beta tapes, VHS tapes, SVHS tapes, and make your cut up reels. Which what a cut up reel is basically a coach wants to see all the first down and 10s. Yeah. Or they may want to see all the short yardage situations, or they want to see all the 12 personnel groupings. So we would have to put those onto tapes, but we could only do one tape at a time. So we sat there Sunday night with tapes in 5 decks, click-clacking, queuing up to record onto one tape. And then here's that tape that they would watch those situations onto. Yeah. About 5-6 years later, mid 1990s, we went to more of what we would call a nonlinear system. Mm-hmm. It was by Avid Sports, and everything was now on a computer. Mm-hmm. So we were now ingesting or importing all that video that we were getting in from all the different schools, putting it in the system. I'd have a young lady come in, type up all the information into the computer. Here's first down, here's 10, and write that down through the plays. GAs would go through and write it all up. She'd come in on a Wednesday night, type it all in for me, and then we start making the cut-ups, and now they're watching them on their computer. Yeah. Okay, so then we transitioned to, now we found a way to shoot not onto tape anymore, but onto hard drives. Mm-hmm. So in the early 2000s, now we're taking that video, we're shooting it right onto a hard drive, bringing it in without having to mark it. We can just import it right into the system. And then now coaches are adding data to it. This is all still standard def video, but they're able to add data to it, and they're able to watch it even more efficiently, even more quicker. Early 2010s, another story I could go into on this, but now we made the transition to high def video. And that's kind of where we're at today. That as far as acquiring video, cutting it all up, we have a network around here of probably around 70 computers in this building, where Coaches are in their meeting rooms, in their offices. And then when I say coaches, analysts, GAs, everyone has access to it. Our personnel office, our recruiting office, they all have access to our database of video that has every single FCS game, FBS game, NFL game, and a plethora of high school games, as you can imagine, that everyone has access to be able to pull up on a moment's notice and say, you're looking at a kid in a transfer portal from school somewhere out east. You can just say, hey, give me all of his plays. Boom, they come right up now. All of that video resides in our office.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. After spending almost over 20 years in that position at Iowa, going to college in Iowa, growing up in Iowa, what was the transition like to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and why did you feel like you needed to make that opportunity happen for you?
Well, a couple of reasons. I remember we were playing Iowa State in Iowa City one day, and it was a Big Ten Network game, and it was Tom Brenneman and Charles Davis who were on the call. Okay, and the announcers would come in on a Friday, and they come in and watch some video before they had their meetings with the coaches, coordinators, and some selected players. So I was always excited I always told our SID, hey, just let me know when they're coming. I'll get them set up. You guys don't have to come over. Yeah. And they were more than happy with that. So I'd set them up, get them waters. Here's the remote. Here's the game you want to watch. Yeah. If you have any questions, I'll come back down in half an hour. Charles Davis on this Friday came in a little bit late. And we started talking, SEC football a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't, I'm in the Big Ten. I grew up in the Big Ten. Yeah. I know of the SEC. I know the football that is played there. But he just kind of made the comment to me as we were discussing it. He says, hey, if you ever want to go to a game in the SEC, just let me know. I can help you get your tickets. So I never asked. I mean, I wasn't going to go down that road because I'm not doing that. But I always thought, boy, it'd be cool to see what the SEC is like. Yeah. And then 2012 came around. And, without this sounding disrespectful to Coach Ferentz or anyone at Iowa, there's just sometimes you just need a change. Yeah. Sometimes in life you just need a change. And I just felt 2012 was that time. Mm-hmm. And Bret Bielema was becoming the head football coach at Arkansas. Yeah. And a story that those close to me know, Bret was in my wedding. Wow. Because he was a player. He was a walk-on when I started working as a student at Iowa. Mm-hmm. He was a GA when I first started becoming the head video coordinator at Iowa. He then became position coach. I would go set up his meetings for him. We would go out on Thursday nights with a bunch of other people, but we had a little steak place in a little town called West Branch, which is very similar to what Oxford is. Mm-hmm. But there was a steak place where you could grill your own steaks. Yeah. You just go into the cooler. That's the steak I want. They would hand it to you. You go put it on the grill. You just sat around, had a few beers. You grilled your steak. Then you went over and ate it. It was just a good bonding experience with some of the GAs, some of the younger staff on staff. And Bret and I just always had a friendship. He was even the one that kind of, in another story, kind of twisted around how my bachelor party was going to be. Instead of spending a weekend in Chicago, which included a Cubs game, it became a Sunday in Chicago, which included a different Cubs game. But we've always been friends. We've always had a good relationship. Yeah. And when he left to go to K-State to be the coordinator, I wouldn't say it was hard on me, but I understood he needed to make that change too. Yeah. So when he went to Wisconsin, from Wisconsin down to Arkansas, I called him up and I said, hey, Bret, and I knew their video guy had left. I wasn't going to, I wasn't looking for a job. I had one. It was a good job for me, but I called him up and I said, hey, Bret, I know you're looking for a video guy and I'm interested. He says, really, you would leave Iowa? And I says, you better believe it. I would leave Iowa. He says, okay, well then let's talk. Month later, brought me down for an interview once recruiting was over. And the interview was more for me just to see what Fayetteville was like and making sure that this was a good fit for both of us. Yeah. And a week later, I'm starting my job in Fayetteville. Yeah. Because Bret, I knew I could work with Bret because I've done it before. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to see what the SEC was like. Yeah. I enjoy going to Ann Arbor. I enjoyed going to Columbus. I enjoyed my trips to Camp Randall, to a lot of those places. But I had been doing it, and I wanted to see something else because at the bottom, essentially, I'm a college football fan too.
Yeah.
And, I've done the Big Ten. Now I want to do the SEC, and I don't regret making that switch.
Yes, sir. Well, what kind of in those first year or two at Arkansas, what was that experience of the SEC like for you? Did it live up to your kind of maybe expectations of it? Was there any major differences you kind of saw from being in the SEC to your many years throughout covering it and being within the Big Ten?
Yeah, what I'll say is that I don't want to say it hit you in the face, but you could tell you could tell it was a different conference.
Yeah.
You could tell you're watching a different. It was a different brand of football. It really was. But it was now I'm going to places like Alabama. I was coming here, going to Auburn and seeing all the traditions that all these SEC schools have, LSU even.
Yes, sir.
And, the Grove, War Eagle, the Tiger on the sidelines when it was there, it was now it's different. It was just such a different experience. And I found out in those first couple of years that I got to stop being a fan of college football and start making sure we're doing what we need to do to be successful in this conference.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like we ever didn't do that. But there was times I was just looking around in these stadiums in awe of like, I am here witnessing, seeing what's going on.
Yes, sir. Just overall, what was your time in Arkansas like? Fayetteville will always have a special place in my heart, and especially Bret's time there. That was for me, honestly. I kind of remember the last couple years of Bobby Petrino, but then when Bret got there, those were like my growing up years in Razorback football. So just what was that time like for you in Fayetteville? What was your experience like? What was it like seeing those teams under him? Because I know although there weren't elite years under Bret Bielema, there was still a really strong relationship between the players and the fans throughout that time. So what was your time like there in Fayetteville?
Yeah, I want to say it was a very positive time. I mean, yeah, it was good. I mean, we wanted to win more, obviously. It was just unfortunate, especially that last year, some things happened.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to a lot of football teams with some injuries and things like that. Some things just didn't go our way. Mm-hmm. But met a lot of great people there. I understand the passion that they have for their football program, and the history that goes into it. I've met a lot of great people that I still am friends with today. Mm-hmm. And I even made this comment to somebody the other day. I know that those who are really deeply passionate for the Razorbacks, they bleed Razorback red. Yeah. And so I know what it means to them. But I'll be honest with you now, I want to make sure we beat those guys every single year too.
I love that comment because that's something that I tell people a lot. And they ask me where I'm from. I tell them Arkansas, and I'm like, I bleed Razorback red. But yes, I do go to Ole Miss, but I do love my Rebs beating the Razorbacks every year. So I love that you make that comment. Let me ask you, Matt, if you're speaking to someone that had never been to Fayetteville, Arkansas, what would be a few things that you would want to tell them to go try out for food, or maybe to just go see for like vendors? Where would you tell some people to go if they've never been to Fayetteville, Arkansas before?
Excuse me. Well, I always tell the people around here about JJ's.
Yeah.
Down on Dixon and over there, I forget, on Weddington, I think it was. Those are a couple of places that we kind of hit up. Doe's is always kind of the popular place to get a steak or something, right there on Dixon. But we found ourselves going up to Rogers and into Bentonville there the last couple of years. We were there to go get some fine dining places. Fish City Grill, I think, they would cater to us every once in a while.
Yes, sir. And
I kind of got to know the owner there. I'm not sure if he's still associated with it or not, but that was a good place up there on the promenade of Rogers. Those would probably be the places that. Oh, and then they had Coach B's radio show there with the catfish. Yeah, it was on Weddington. I'm blanking on the name right now, but they would call the Hogs when the recruits went in there. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. The owner passed away a few years ago.
Mm.
And that's where the radio show used to be, and we'd always go out there because it wasn't far from our house either.
Yes,
But yeah, there was a lot of good places to eat up there.
yeah.
And we enjoyed throughout that whole corridor from, Bentonville on down to Fayetteville. It was a nice place, just like Oxford is. It's a great place to raise a family. And that's what I think I've been fortunate with Iowa City, Fayetteville, and Oxford is that, my boys have been able to grow up in good conditions, good towns for families.
Yes, sir. Just real quick, how would you evaluate Bret's time now being back in the Big Ten at Illinois and kind of, in a way, kind of controlling his destiny a little bit differently than he's done in past schools so far?
Yeah, I think Bret's comfortable with where he's at in the Big Ten. I mean, he knows how to recruit there. And when not just saying Illinois, but in the Big Ten, he knows how to recruit there. He knows who he is. It's a good fit for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he's able to be closer to home. I know losing his mom a couple of years ago meant a lot to him because they were very close to his family is very close. His mom and his dad would drive down to Fayetteville often, and they would drive. They wouldn't fly. And, I mean, they were getting up there in age. So for him to be back in Champaign with a couple of daughters, that are very young and to spend some time there, I think that's, that Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, that area, that's where he's meant to be.
Yes, sir. Before I kind of get to another part, you talk about Bret's family, and you mentioned, growing up, raising your kids in good places. Matt, just what does it mean to you to be a father and watch your kids grow up, and just what does that role mean for you to be in their lives and make sure they have a significant role in terms of understanding that you're there for them? They have someone that they come talk to. Just being a father, what does that mean to you? What does it mean for your life?
Well, I think it means a lot to be their dad. My son, who even in his freshman year at Ole Miss, yes, there's a little bit of comfort factor, but he wasn't afraid to, call me up and while he was on campus and say, "Hey, you mind if we go to lunch?" And I'm sure he knew I was paying, but he was like, "You mind if we go to lunch?" And I was like, for a freshman in college who is trying to make a name for himself and not to look like dad's always around or anything like that. I mean, I thought that was very telling, that he would be wanting to come to spend some time with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant a lot. We actually just, before I got to the office today, we just went to Jimmy John's and had both of my boys, all three of us just went there to have some lunch. And it wasn't my call. It was their call. "Hey, what are you doing for lunch? We'd love to go to lunch with you." So that means they want to be with me as much as I want to be with them, which is cool. I mean, that's really cool. And then the other thing too is what I've been very fortunate to do here. Like I told you at Iowa, coaching my son's T-ball team. Well, the last 4 or 5 years, 5-6 years maybe, I've been able to coach my younger son's Little League team here in Oxford. Mm-hmm. And I probably made some enemies with parents in the other team because when I'm coaching my team, I'm all for my team. Mm-hmm. And maybe I do get a little out of control, but I'm making sure that they have a good experience on the Little League team. And coaching your kids' team is just really special. And, I'm not saying my kid was the best pitcher on the team. He was probably one of the 2 or 3 that I could rely upon because I knew what I was going to get out of him. Mm-hmm. And I knew I could talk to him and I knew all that. So when I put him out there, I'm not the dad behind the fence who's pacing. I'm the dad in front of the fence now pacing while my son's out there because I know there's pressure on him because everyone's looking at him. And then there's going to be pressure on me because everyone's looking at me because that's my kid. Yeah. And it's just, I wouldn't have it any other way. Mm-hmm. But boy, I've enjoyed the last 5 or 6 years being able to coach my son and just coach Little League in general. I love baseball. I love football. Those are the 2 sports I kind of know the best, but I just love coaching baseball and just getting out there and just teaching kids the game and what I would say, playing it the right way.
Yes, sir. Okay, and I'm going to ask you something just because based off that, and I got that vibe from you as well. I know we talked about being in the SEC for football, but for you in terms of the baseball aspect as well, because Fayetteville, Dave Van Horn has obviously created a great fan base and just kind of culture over there in Fayetteville over the last couple of decades. And Mike Bianco's done the same thing. Oxford, what's that SEC baseball experience been like for you? What does it maybe stand out to you, maybe compared to the Big Ten or other places?
Yeah, I got to admit that that was one of the things I wasn't prepared for when I came down here, was going to these venues and seeing these venues are, I mean, there's single A ballparks in the state of Iowa that aren't what we have for colleges in this conference.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing to see the passion at all just even watching games on TV at other ballparks, just the passion that fans have down here for baseball. My only regret is, and I don't know if it's a regret, but I wish that with our schedule in the spring, with spring football and just the commitment, I don't make it over to see the Rebs play that much as I'd like to. We try to get over there as often as we can, which still isn't a whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's such a great ballpark to go to. Swayze is just a great vibe, so much fun. And it's a great park that I can take my kid to, and he enjoys it and he gets into it. He starts to know who the players are. So, yeah, I mean, I wish I really could take more advantage of being able to, sit and relax and be able to watch the game. But my mind's still over here during spring ball, and I can't. And sometimes there's just times I just want to sit on the couch.
Yeah.
Yes,
sir. All right. Coming to Oxford in 2018, just what was that transition like for you, and how did you even get the opportunity to come to Ole Miss? How did that opportunity come about to you, and what was that transition like for you coming to Oxford?
Yeah, well, so as some know, that when Bret was let go at Arkansas, it was as he was coming off the field in the last football game.
Yeah,
I was in the locker room, and as he was coming off the field, they pulled him into a room, told him what was going on.
Yeah.
Then he came out, and every time he would address the team, the first thing he would do is have a long kneel for a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And in that prayer is when he released the news to the team.
Yeah.
And so we were all on pins and needles, the staff was. I've never been through this before, as far as, at Iowa, we went from Coach Fry to Coach Ferentz. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a possibility, but I didn't think it was going to happen. This time around, kind of felt like this could be the time. And 2 weeks after Bret was let go, I was let go. And now I give Arkansas a bunch of credit. They gave us 3 months to find something. And within that 3 months, Matt Luke had called Coach Bielema and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a video guy." And Bret called me. He says, "Hey, do you mind if I give Matt Luke your number?" I was like, "Yeah, please give him my number because I need a job." And he goes, "Okay." So then Matt called me, and I came over here for an interview, and it was kind of funny. There was an ice storm in Oxford in January, which I'm finding out is pretty common anymore. And being a Midwestern guy, I have no problems getting to the inn here at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And John Miller, who was Matt's operations guy, and Tom Luke, who is, as I found out, just does anything that we need him to do around here. Obviously, Matt's brother. They came to meet me at the hotel to take me to dinner. And they were trying to figure out where to go and what was going to be open. And they were like, I don't even know what roads are open. And I said, "Do you want me to drive?" And they kind of laughed. He goes, "No, we'll get there." So we had dinner that night on the square. And I mean, I just knew it was the right place. I mean, just seeing, when you come here as a visitor, you don't get to see the square or anything like that. And it is a really cool experience, especially the first time you get to be on campus, be in Oxford, to see the square, to see the vibe that the students have with the community.
Yes, sir.
And I just knew it was the right place. They told me about the schools that were in Oxford, and I felt good about sending my kids to Oxford High School, or the Oxford School District. Did our research there. I'm not sure why, but it took a couple of months to kind of get this all finalized. And I was over here probably about March 8th or 9th of 2018 is when I got started. Family met me over here in June, and then it was go from there. So, but yeah, when they got over here, I mean, yeah, it's tough to move your kids. honestly. I think anyone would say that, but it was an easy transition. My oldest was going to be going into his 9th grade year at Oxford High, and my youngest was going to be a first grader, so we knew that transition was going to be a lot easier. And they all accepted it. They all were welcome to it. And, my oldest son still kind of needles his friends back in Fayetteville when the Rebs beat the Hogs in any sport. So fortunately, we've been able to needle them quite a bit here, and that's been good. So, but yeah, it's my wife enjoys it. We enjoy it. The only drawback is it's 9 hours from Iowa now, where I was about 7 to 8 from it before.
Yes, sir.
So when I go back to family, it's a little bit of a longer drive.
Yes, sir.
But we can live with that.
Yes, sir.
We can live with that.
I don't know why I'm so intrigued to kind of want to know this from you, but I really want to ask you, during the COVID pandemic time, what was that like for you? Like, how did that change your job in terms of what you were doing in a day-to-day basis every day? Like, did it make your job harder, make it easier? Like during COVID, how did that kind of affect what you do in terms of your role within the program here at Oxford? What did COVID do for you at that time?
Well, you got to remember when COVID happened, we were in the midst of coaching change.
Yeah, exactly.
And we weren't really sure how Coach Kiffin operated yet. And we were getting to know him, which, I mean, that took a while. And we were getting to know his staff. I think the staff was getting to know him. There were some people already on staff that were familiar with him. There were some that weren't. And then all of a sudden we get shut down, and I'm just trying to communicate with anyone who will listen to me about what do we need to do? How are we going to do it? What can we do? What's the SEC allowing us to do? So there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, it just wasn't about how we were going to do our jobs. Is who are we working with?
Yeah.
And that to me was a little bit of the tough part. And then when we reconvened and were able to be together was, okay, now how does this work?
Yeah.
And hi, I'm Matt again. You remember, I'm the video guy you met before we got locked out of this building.
Yeah.
So that was what was tough about the job at that point.
Yeah.
It was trying to understand what everyone needed, who everyone was, how we all worked together, and then transition into a new, I don't want to say business model, but a working model.
Yeah.
So that was what was tough. But I think if I would look back, what I would tell myself is just do what you do. We have video, have it ready to go. Coaches can log in and watch. They can watch it on their iPads, and then just kind of when they ask you for something, you just respond to it and figure out how to get it done, because that's what a lot of our job is anymore, is just figuring it out.
Yes, sir.
But it was again a kind of an unstable situation, not because it was COVID, but it was because it was a new coaching staff, and it's all worked out well for all of us around here, the coaching staff and the transition, and we got to play football. And it was, I just remember being in Tampa the night after the night of that bowl game, of the Outback Bowl, and it was just more of a relief that we got through this.
Yes, sir.
And we celebrated that too.
Yes, sir. No, I got to wrapping up, but I want to ask you, I know you mentioned your love for the Packers as well earlier. Just give me a few favorite Packers moments, favorite Packers players from your perspective. What do you love so much about the Green Bay Packers?
Well, it's kind of funny because, I'm a Packers fan, and I talk about how me and my dad did so much together. Well, he was a big-time Bears fan. So that's some of my best memories are, Bears-Packers games.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the students on my staff, his stepdad just retired as the video director of the Chicago Bears.
Wow, yeah.
So there's something to me about that rivalry between the Bears and the Packers. That's kind of cool. Some friends of mine would go in to see the Bears and the Packers play when it was in December, and it was that transition between the end of the season to bowl season.
Yeah. And
it might be a Sunday night game at Soldier Field. We could get there. And I just remember sitting in the stands, and I was I got the tickets through the Packers, and where my seat was the beginning of the Packers section. Where my buddy's seat was the beginning of the Bears section, and we were stuck in the middle of a bar, a group of people who came from a bar in some small town in Wisconsin, who sat near us, and they had started drinking once they left the bar. At the time it closed until they got to Chicago, and they were drunk, and they were going against these Bears fans next to us, and they had a few beverages, adult beverages in them as well, and got a little concerning there at one point, but cooler heads prevailed. But that's some of my memories. I was in Dallas for one of the playoff games where Crosby hit the winner. And then a tornado was in the area, and they weren't allowing. My buddy who was a Cowboys fan. We left as soon as that ball went through the uprights. We got out of there and got ahead of the tornado, but they weren't allowing some fans out of the stadium. Those would be some of my memories as far as favorite players. I mean, I always said Brett Favre was my favorite player because he's my age and he's quarterback in my favorite team. So I've got a soft spot for Brett Favre, but Bart Starr too. I mean, even though he played before I was alive, he won him 2 Super Bowls. The other 2 guys only won him 1. So those are the guys that I think of. And then I talk about, players that I know who've gone on to play for the Packers. Obviously I there's a soft spot in my heart for guys like that too.
Yes, sir. I love that. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier or before we got on camera. My best friend is a huge Iowa fan, also a Cubs fan. I'm a Cardinals fan, and I'm a Cowboys fan, and he's a Packers fan. So everything you just said hit me in a different way. I remember the Mason Crosby field goal like it was yesterday. We actually had the opportunity a few years ago to go to the Cowboys-Packers game when, Jordan Love had his takeover game. And it was not a fun night for me, but it was definitely a memory that would serve us both for our friendship. So I love to hear stories like that. There's
awesome.
No, it is. And I tell people that, although you have your heartbreaking moments as a sports fandom person, it does build like friendship and connections with people that, maybe you wouldn't have without sports. So I'm super grateful for all my sports moments with my best friend. But, man, I want to ask you a little bit of a fun question real quick before I ask you my final question. If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be? I know it may make you think about that a little bit.
No, this is going to sound really strange. I shouldn't say strange. Dead or alive, I could think of 3 people, and it's just because I want to sit there and listen to the stories.
Yeah.
That third person would be. I tell you what, when I'm watching that MLB Central show on MLB Network, Mark DeRosa, I could just sit and listen to him talk about how to swing the bat, how to throw the ball, how to field. I just think it's a clinic when I listen to him talk. It's just so much fun to hear him, because he knows the players. He can talk, he talks like the players. Yeah. But he's so well-rounded, so well-versed, so well-educated when it comes to baseball, about coaching young players, because he's done that. I think Mark DeRosa, and he's been everywhere. He's been a Cardinal, he's been a Cub, he's been a Brave, probably a few other stops. But he's got the experiences, and I would just love to sit there and listen to the stories. Mm-hmm. Going back to the Sandberg game, I mean, Bob Costas was on the call, and I think all the people who really know me well just knows how much I enjoy listening to Bob Costas talk sports. Yeah. He's had those radio shows. I used to tune into those when I was in my teenage years. Here I am, a teenager on Sunday night, trying to get in some station from, Louisville, Kentucky, so I can hear the national show because I can't find it in my area, just to listen to Bob Costas interview somebody on a sports topic. He had those NBC late night shows. And when he talks, he's giving stories, not necessarily about sports, but about some of the personalities that he's talked to, and he's well-versed in that. And then I got to be honest with you, my third one would have to be a tie between Keith Jackson and Brent Musburger. Those are 2 voices of my youth that, when I had to have the phone on with the game as I was driving home the other night, just so I could listen to his interview with Tirico and Collinsworth in the booth with Brent Musburger. And I've got a ABC college football banner at my house, and with the first person who autographed with Keith was Keith Jackson.
Yeah. And
I've got Keith on there. I've got Brent Musburger on there. I've got Chris Fowler. I've got Herb Street. I've got Nestler. I mean, that's one of my prized possessions.
Yeah.
So Keith Jackson, I would just love to listen to him just talk.
Yeah.
And I could give you probably 2 or 3 more, like Pat Hughes, the broadcaster of the Cubs. I just think he should have a radio show in the off season and just talk about anything, because he's just got such a great wit about him. But if you have me say 3 people, Mark DeRosa, I've always said, because I just love listening to him talk baseball. And there's something about guys who talk ball that's just so much fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Costas, because he's done everything in sports broadcasting like a Musburger or Keith Jackson have. Yeah. So those would be among my 3.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I really do. Those are 3/4 that I've never heard, but I was a huge Brent Musburger fan. Absolutely huge. I loved everything about his work. I go back and watch old games that I really have no interest in watching the teams, just to hear Brent's voice and just to hear him, cover a game. That's how big of a Brent Musburger fan I was.
Well, and let me just go back to how I told you I would always bring the announcers in and on a Friday and have them watch. Brent Musburger was one of those. I had never met Brent Musburger in my life before, so I'm intimidated by the fact that I get to meet him.
Yeah.
Okay. And he comes in there and I set him up and he starts asking me all these questions like I'm going to know the answers to. And I really don't. I mean, so what are the coaches thinking about this guy? And I said, well, you're going to have to ask him this. He goes, hey, how's so-and-so looking in practice? And I'm like, I don't know what to say. But he was just so kind and so open and he just treated you like you knew you've been with him, a friend of his for years. And I'll never forget that. And if anyone tells you otherwise about him, then I question who they are and maybe the experience that they caught him in at the time, because I've talked to him 2 or 3 different occasions. He has no idea who I am on each of those occasions. And he treated me like he had known me for years.
Yeah, I love that. I love Keith Jackson as well, too. I don't think that the younger generation, myself included, knows a lot about Keith, but he was one of the most legendary voices of college football ever. And I think if people have the opportunity to go back and hear some of his old calls, you would definitely learn a bit about, what Keith brought to college football, what he meant to. So I love those answers. I really do. Yeah. Last thing, Matt, I've stole it from a good buddy of mine, but I call it now the fruits of labor on the show. So it's kind of 2 questions in one. But the first question is just, what advice would you want to give someone watching or listening? Just something that you've been able to learn or something that you like to give people to kind of resonate on. What would you want to tell people to just take on with their life or their day in terms of advice? And secondly is legacy. I'm really big on that and just kind of doing things I want to be remembered for in a positive manner. So I want to ask you, when people hear your name, what do you want people always to remember about you as a person?
Oh, I don't know. I guess to answer your first question is people just need to listen. I don't think that happens enough anymore, where people listen. They just want to talk. And I don't want to say, well, that's because of social media, everyone gets a voice and everything like that. I mean, First Amendment, we all have a right to our opinions, but people also need to listen. And I think that would help go a long way. So that's what I would do is, when I bring my staff in, like we just did at this beginning of this year, I threw a lot of information at them. And I know I probably wasn't fair to them, but hey, you're going to know how to run a camera. This is what you got to know.
Yeah.
And I was telling them everything. This is how we should practice. I know you're not going to be able to take in all this until you start doing it. So listen to these points. And then if you have questions after you've done it, then let's reevaluate it. Let's go back and look at everything. But just take in and listen and just don't have any other outside influences to think of. Just if when we talk to one another, have open ears, and again, like I said, First Amendment, I had a teacher in high school that she was our government teacher. She would always say, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it.
Yeah. And,
I've always kind of lived myself by that. So, I try to listen to everybody. I may not agree with you, but you have your every right to believe in that too. So that's the one thing. As far as my legacy, I don't know. It's I've kind of looked at that differently as my years have gone by.
Yeah.
I've been really fortunate to work with 5 great head coaches, and there's a lot of people in my profession who may have done it as long as I have, who have had maybe 3 times, 4 times that many coaches that they've worked for.
Yeah.
But I started out with Hayden Fry for 10 years, went with Kirk Ferentz for 14 years, Bret Bielema for 5, Matt Luke for 2, and Lane. I mean, all outstanding head coaches in their own right, with their own ways of doing things. And I've learned so much from Lane. I mean, he's really been, and I'm not saying that just because I'm saying this, but I do feel like I should say that is because he's been very good to me. And of all the 5 head coaches, Hayden was very loyal to the people that worked for him, and I respect that. Kirk kind of told me how to do my job in a way that was how the NFL wanted you to do it. So how we shot things, that's where I was molded per se from how Kirk wanted things done. Bret showed me how it was important not only just to be loyal, but care about the people that work for you. You know, care about the players that are with you, care about the staff and everything like that. So, you know, Matt gets here and I just see the passion and love that he had for Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And I wish I got to work with him for even longer than what I did. But, you know, that's the one thing I took from him is that how much Iowa meant to me is how much Ole Miss means to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to, anything that I do is because he hired me, I don't want to let him down because I know that this place meant a lot to him.
Yes, sir.
And then with Lane, you know, from his dad to his brother to everybody in the family that I've met have all been outstanding to me. And, you know, the thing that I really respect with Lane is he's let me do my job. He doesn't tell me how to do my job, and which tells me either one, which basically tells me he likes how we're doing things around here. And he just lets me be, which I really greatly appreciate.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship. He's the one that's gotten me into hot yoga with him. And I don't go because it's him. I did at the beginning, but now I go for other reasons because I see the benefits of it. And it's just nice. I think he appreciates seeing me when he walks in, but I know I appreciate him when he walks in because he's part of the reason why I'm still there today too. So as far as a legacy, things have kind of changed throughout my career, and how I'd want to be remembered is I always wanted to be remembered for the teams and the people that I met at Iowa, but I want to be more remembered for the difference that I made with my students. I've got a few students, 5, 6 students just here at Ole Miss that went on to work in the NFL, and very proud of that.
Yeah.
And I always tell my guys or my crew, girls and guys, hey, I'm not telling you should go on and do this. This just gives you a avenue to pursue. If you want to get into the NFL, this gets you a foot in the door. And what we teach you here will benefit you and maybe open a door for you at the next level. So a few of them have taken advantage of it. But when I was in Iowa, I says, hey, if you guys want to go work in Chicago and that's what you want to do and live in Wrigleyville, good for you. But I just want you to have a good experience while you're here. And that's really what I want everyone to have is a good experience. Work hard, you know, feel like you're part of this team. So when we win, you feel like you contributed to it. And when we lose, it hurts you. And I just want you to feel like you're as much of a part of this team as any player or any staff member is. And when you leave here, I want it to be a good experience for you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And I love every aspect of that. Man, this has been very joyful for me to be able to have this conversation with you, able to laugh with you, able to learn some things from you, able to hear some of your stories. I'm really grateful I reached out, and I'm really grateful we were able to sit down and do this. This meant a lot to me, so thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show.
No problem, Dan. I appreciate you asking me. This is cool. Never done this before, so thanks.
No, anytime. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like I said in the beginning, if you're new, please subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a like and a comment. What was your favorite part about Matt's, throughout his journey through Iowa, Arkansas, Ole Miss? Just what was your favorite moment throughout his journey? Appreciate you guys for tuning in. God bless everyone. Take care.